Hey everybody, Rob Booker here, and we got a week preview video coming here, sponsored by IGUS. IGUS is a leading Forex broker, and I am a leading US dresser today. Check this out. I have a big meeting this weekend. I'm off to the airport, and I'm going to dress up the whole trip, the whole way. You'll probably see those videos coming up. I just thought I would look fancy for once in my entire life. We got big stuff going on next week. This upcoming week, the week of what is today? What's today's date?
Today's day is the 10th.
The 10th. So we got big things coming up next week. And I'm not going to talk necessarily about the economic events coming up, because later on in the month we've got the ECB and the ZOO report and the Australian employment and the minutes of an Australian interest rate decision and so much more stuff coming down the road. But what's important to me right now are some technicals that I really think we need to take a look at here in 2020, because the new year has begun and we're still looking at some of the most interesting charts that I think we've seen in a long time. The euro had a giant slide lower over the course of the last year, and it's really hard to figure out why that is. The demand for European bonds is at an all-time high. Interest rates for even Greek bonds went negative. That means there was such a giant demand for those bonds. And of course, in order to buy those bonds, you got to have euros. So this sliding, this trend occurred in the midst of a lot of buying of euros. And that means, to me anyway, that there was a bunch of pressure on the euro, even though there was a lot of demand for those bonds. Now, it's like the story's changing a bit, right? Economic conditions around the world are potentially slowing. The demand for those European bonds are still high. Is there a chance that we break above $1.13? And I keep mentioning this level. We break above that level, and that puts in sight like really easily achievable levels, most likely. You know, $1.15, but then you get up to like $1.18, which is a level that has been seen and repeated over and over again. But then you get into this really interesting zone here, like $1.2150 or $1.22. All trading involves a substantial risk of loss. But if this level breaks and holds for a week, $1.13, that puts $1.22 in view over the course of the next year. But that's not the only place this would go if the trend reverses. We're likely, if we can exceed those highs, to go much further than that. So that's scenario number one, and it's a really long-term view of the way things could potentially play out. But there's another side to that story, of course, and that is that the bottom drops out of all of this, and that's at $1.09. If we go below and stay below $1.09, demand for the bonds could be high. Whatever. You could have all kinds of different things going on. But then we are potentially headed for parity, potentially over the course of the next 12 months after. Take a look and pay really close attention to that ZOO economic survey coming up in a couple of weeks. Pay attention to that European Central Bank interest rate decision coming up in January. What are they really going to do? Are they going to persist in buying bonds? Are they going to announce any changes to that program? All of those things are going to affect this movement. So the technicals might suggest where it's going. The fundamentals are going to be the catalyst that drives us through these levels. And right now, it's really been caught inside of this zone here. So just keep those things in mind. And let's jump over to the Australian dollar. So this is probably my favorite currency pair in the world, the Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar. And I've told this story before. I was chatting with the CEO and founder of the world's largest FX broker at the time, and this is probably 10 years ago. And he said, "You want to know what the most profitably traded currency pair in the world is?" And I was like, "Of course I want to know what pair that is." And he said, "The Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar." And it just blew my mind. And the reason for that is that it doesn't move all that much. And even if it does move potentially a significant distance, it tends to come back because these two currencies are so highly correlated. All right, so we're at this critical stage now. I've been watching this for a long time. All trading involves a substantial risk of losses, and past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. But I bought this pair, so I'm long the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar right now. And look at this. Look at that giant exhaustion candle that hit a low of basically parity. You know, 1 Australian dollar. This is 1 New Zealand dollar. This is super significant. Did this lock in a low? Because then we made a higher low. And now, are we making another higher low? So low, higher low, and higher highs. Is this the emerging bullish trend that we've been looking for? If so, if we break and stay above, let's say, $1.05, that puts in view $1.08 and then beyond. So that's the big question. I'm not really bearish, and I don't think any market participants are really bearish until we break below that 1 mark. And that's a critical level. I'm not going to tell you that it's impossible, but it's going to take a lot of fundamental economic stuff to make that happen. We're going to have to see terrible employment numbers out of Australia at the end of the month. We're going to have to see some kind of ridiculous statement from the central bank later in the month. So keep a watch on that level, and if that level gets hit, then we'll talk about it when we get to that place in time. In the meantime, thanks so much for reading all those emails last week. We sent you 900 million emails, and I really appreciate you taking the time to respond. We had an unprecedented response to those videos that we did in Alabama, and I bet we can even share some clips of those, maybe even here for a second, and then maybe next week while I'm traveling in Florida, we can put up a video that shows some of those clips. But those were pretty great. Hopefully you saw those, and if you didn't, we'll share some of those clips. Thanks to IGUS, a leading Forex broker, for sponsoring this week preview video. I'm Rob Booker, and we'll see you again soon.